Hello, this is Louise Sorrell. I'm talking to TV Confidential, and you should tune in because they're really wonderful.
Ed Robertson with a reminder that Allison Arngrim and Ellen Gear will join us in our second hour. We hope you stay tuned for that. In the meantime, this coming Saturday, December 13th, marks the 100th birthday of television icon Dick Van Dyke. With that in mind, we're going to bring you an encore presentation of a conversation Tony Figueroa, Donna Allen, and I had in December 2011 about the life and career of
Dick Van Dyke. What an icon, and still going strong.
And the show is still fresh. The show still works.
Mark DeWidziak, a television critic for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, did a nice piece in early October. We posted it on our TV Confidential Facebook page. Not only the ways that Van Dyke shaped television in the 60s, but the, for lack of a better word, the adult, meaning smart, meaning sophisticated approach to storytelling not only influenced the writing of future television, of future comedy shows on television, but also future sophisticated storytelling in other genres, including genre, and you can make a case for even shows like Hill Street Blues finding its roots in Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of shows that use Dick Van Dyke, more comedies than dramas, obviously, but use Dick Van Dyke as their model. I think I Love Lucy is the model A, and Dick Van Dyke is the model T.
Yeah.
I Love Lucy set the prototype for the sitcom that we know today. There were, I think, Amos and Andy also experimented with the 3-camera, but the basic format is still alive with I Love Lucy. But once they got the thing off the ground, and they did it brilliantly with I Love Lucy, and there were shows that came and went, that are memorable or not memorable, but I say, okay, we know how to work the machine. Let's do a great show. And Dick Van Dyke was, I think, the first really great sitcom once they got all the technology bugs worked out.
And remember, the show was on the chopping block. It was saved in basically summer reruns. That's where it found its audience.
Right, because they're discovering it for the first time because they're watching the Dick Van Dyke Show where they may have been watching other shows during the first run. But that has, there are oodles of examples over the years where
Cheers,
a show that really discovered its audience, or its audience numbers grew in summer reruns because people are watching it for the first time.
It was officially canceled by CBS. There was a great deal of lobbying from Sheldon Leonard, one of the creators, and one of the TV icons I don't think gets enough credit.
Right, Sheldon Leonard, the man behind the Andy Griffith Show and the Danny Thomas Show.
And I Spy and many other projects, and an accomplished actor beforehand as well.
Yes, and we'll be kind and we won't mention Big Eddie.
No. But, a one-note actor, unfortunately.
Bad
very
show.
Good, yeah. But,
But he was good in It's a Wonderful Life.
He was good in It's a Wonderful Life, unfortunately, and he played a con man character or a con. He didn't have a great range as an actor.
Yeah.
He did what he did very well, but he knew that he needed to develop some other skills.
But he had excellent range as a producer and a lot of vision.
A lot of vision. And do people even realize when you're watching Big Bang Theory, the two main characters are named Sheldon and Leonard? That is not a coincidence.
Yeah.
That is not a coincidence. I mean, there are people in this industry, I think the smart ones know, their roots. And Desi Arnaz, Sheldon Leonard, Danny Thomas, Carl Reiner. I mean, when you look back, those are the people, I think anybody who has half a brain in television know, those are the icons.
Leonard.
But these are the people who also gave the work to the Rod Serlings, the Aaron Spellings, and a lot of other talent. These are the ones who opened the doors for some of the other people that we love to celebrate on this show. But going back to Dick Van Dyke, can you imagine this guy had no formal dance training, and was just a very versatile performer, very talented actor.
I've been basically plucked off the Broadway stage from Bye Bye Birdie to do this.
He got a Tony for that.
Yes, he did.
And he was. But the Dick Van Dyke Show was actually Carl Reiner's idea for a project for himself called Head of the Family, where he played Rob Petrie. and the show wasn't going to sell. And Sheldon Leonard told him, America's not ready for you. You're a little too Jewish looking.
Yeah.
Can you imagine somebody saying that in the workplace today? And this kind of goes back to our Charlie Brown conversation. America has this perception, and I think Sheldon Leonard was absolutely right for the time. But at this time, no, we can't have that. I mean, it's not going to work for a typical American family to be.
And credit to Carl Reiner for having, not for being
for
able
not throwing in the towel.
Not throwing in the towal and putting his ego aside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
I have a great deal of respect. I mean, I've known a lot of people who have created projects for themselves. When they said, we like the idea, but we don't want you,
right.
Then the attitude has been, I'm taking my bat and ball and going home.
Right.
And Carl Reiner did not do that. He actually, he did create Alan Brady for himself.
Yes.
And,
but as we said before a few weeks ago, I mean, he was a character best taken in small doses and in the shadows. I mean, he was sort of the specter.
I think, Carl had the autonomy that he could have written Alan into every episode.
Yeah.
Alan was a presence on that show, whether you saw him or not, whether
Yes.
you were at the workplace or at the home place, and it was a nice balance between home and work. And, I think they knew that, Alan Brady paid for their dinner. Mm-hmm. Alan Brady pays for the roof over their head. And if they didn't say it, Mel Cooley reminded you of that. And that was just as good. It's kind of like Jack Benny not getting all the laughs in the show. It doesn't matter. My name's on the title.
That's right.
And so I think Carl Reiner had that. So I have a wonderful amount of respect for what he brought. But Dick Van Dyke himself, I mean, it is amazing. Rose Marie had no idea who this guy was. He said, we'd like you to audition for the Dick Van Dyke Show. Sure. What's a Dick Van Dyke? And today, I think they would make him change his name. It was, I think, the last season of Family Ties. Michael J. Fox got the Emmy for Best Actor in a Situation Comedy, and it was, like at the end of the night. And the presenters were Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore. And of course, again, they come out on stage. It is, standing ovation. I imagine the producer is looking at the clock. The show is running, and the audience, dies down. And Dick Van Dyke just looks at her and said, "Okay, they want to hear you say it. Go ahead and say it before we start." And she does the "Oh Rob" bit, and the audience, and then again there's like another standing ovation. They announce the nominees, and the Emmy goes to Michael J. Fox. He gets up on stage, and they hand him the trophy, give him a kiss, a little hug, a pat on the back, and they disappear out of frame. And he is staring in the direction where they're walking to, not at the camera, not to the audience, and he is just looking over there at those two. And then he finally turns around, looks at the camera, and he said, "Can you imagine this? Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore are far out." And everyone applauds for that.
Yeah.
I mean, so just their presence probably ate up a good 3-4 minutes of expensive airtime. And then, I think he was more thrilled about having these two give him the Emmy than actually getting the Emmy.
Yeah.
And then he just takes his breath and he goes, "I feel 5 feet tall." But can you imagine the influence that these two characters have?
Yeah.
And then you look at writers and the influence that, here you have a show where 3 of the characters are television writers.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't see that as much, and the fact that in the show they talked about the importance of what they do.
Yeah, 2 things. One, we did a few months back. We did a segment with Wes Hyatt about on the passing of Sam Denoff, who wrote some of the most iconic episodes of the Dick Van Dyke Show. And then also we had a conversation with Lee Goldberg, where we talked about his book, Successful Television Writing, and the opening, it's either the opening of the first chapter, the opening and the introduction. Lee talks about how the Dick Van Dyke Show and the fact that it was a show about television writers talking about what they did. That was one of the things that cemented his desire to want to write for television.
We always talk about an actor playing a doctor that inspired somebody to go into medicine, or an actor playing a lawyer that inspired somebody to go to medicine. Or Nichelle Nichols inspiring a girl to go into science. But, I think Rob Petrie, Sally Rogers, and Buddy Sorrell did inspire people. And they were funny, and they were quirky characters, and Buddy always had... But they also got serious on the fact that Buddy did demand respect, that, he had 20 years of experience, and that this was a noble profession. I think Buddy was the strongest. This was a noble profession, and I'm a dedicated professional to this, which you don't always get seen in this format. Frustrations that Alan Brady gets all the accolades and these guys don't get the credit were a subject, and yet they kept that opinion to himself. There was one where Rob is being interviewed for a magazine, and Laura shows up at the lunch and starts talking about how brilliant Rob is, and Alan gets upset that it wasn't about him.
Right.
It was about... And so you had that, and just the fact that comedy, let alone writing or the arts, were very important. Very important to us as a society, very important to in historical context, that what these three people do is important. They provide entertainment, they give people laughs, they help people get through their day, that it's not frivolous. And they were very proud of what they did, and they were very important professionals. And they did it in a way that was not preachy, it was not a soapbox, it was not a statement to say that we need more funding for the arts, which you would probably do now. It was, they weren't, giving a pat on the back to the NEA or any of these worthwhile. They just did it because that's who they were. And you had somebody at the helm like Carl Reiner, that was his life in many ways. Little Richie, can you imagine? That was really Rob Reiner. And not only were the stories about his life, but also, he was an advocate, but he was able to be an advocate for the arts and for writing and all this very important stuff that most people take for granted. And he was able to do it, again, like I said, without being preachy, without making it a soapbox.
Now, this is a show that's 50 years old, and honestly, present me with something new, present me with an episode of the Dick Van Dyke Show, I think I'm going to take the Dick Van Dyke Show. It has lasted all these years. It's brilliant. It will remain brilliant.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back. One more item. If you're starting a company, particularly one that is in an emerging market, you know that averting any sort of legal dispute is crucial to your business plan. Our friends at Tectonic Law offer an array of services that can help you avoid and preempt future litigation while also developing and protecting your intellectual property and intangible assets. Tectonic Law serves the needs of a host of emerging industries throughout California and beyond, including industrial designers, beverage makers, artists, farmers, retail stores, health practitioners, wellness experts, cosmetics manufacturers, nonprofit organizations, innovators in sustainable practices, and libraries. Go to tectoniclaw.com to learn more about how Tectonic Law can help your business thrive. tectoniclaw.com. Rock solid representation for groundbreaking industries.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
Ed Robertson, thanking you for listening to the TV Confidential podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button so that you won't miss our next episode. You can enjoy Tony Figueroa's standalone podcast This Week in TV History, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find audio. Allison Arngrim and Ellen Gear will join us. We come back for hour number 2 of TV Confidential. Please stay with us.